Amateur Radio News and Notes for Friday, August 29th, 2025. I'm Ed Kabik, November 2, Echo Charlie. In the log this week, we will have MVARC in the park, a Club POTA activation recap. Also taking a recap of the MVARC breakfast. We'll talk about the FCC batch filing system. It's currently unavailable. We'll get into that. Also, Icom announces that Icom 7300 Mark II and an updated ID 5200 at the Tokyo Ham Fair. Also, great band conditions are expected as autumn approaches. We'll see what's happening with DX, get a solar activity update, as well as look at some upcoming contests and take a look at interesting online radio content. Last weekend, the Mount Vernon Amateur Radio Club activated 7 parks at once for Parks on the Air. We had a great turnout at the parks and had 8 operators get on the air as K4US, Larry, KN4XW, Joseph, WB8KMJ, Clayton, KI5YFN, Paul, WC9A, David, KU8V, Eric, N0UVD, Ed, N2EC, and Gerson, KO4IUK. We activated at 100 watts using a Yaesu FT897 and an N2EC VersaHex antenna. And we made a total of 83 QSOs, with 70 being made on single sideband and 13 being made on CW, all on the 20-meter band. Our signals made it coast to coast in the U.S. and Canada, despite some challenging propagation conditions. A QSO map can be seen in the show notes. The outing was such a success that we may look to do another one very soon. Thanks to everyone who made it such a fun day at the park. Last Saturday, MVARC also had its breakfast, and we had a fantastic turnout with 19 people joining us. We had so many folks joining us that we had to split up into multiple groups because the room wasn't big enough for a full-length table. It was great seeing everyone, and we look forward to having you join us again next month. The ARRL reports that the Federal Communications Commission's electronic batch filing system is currently unavailable. It is used by all volunteer examination coordinator organizations to submit exam sessions, applications, and club license applications. And as a result, applications for new and upgraded licenses and other filings are currently not being processed. The ARRL reports that the FCC has been notified and that they're working to fix the issue, but there's no estimated time of resolution. For updates on the status of the situation, visit the link in the show notes. Last weekend brought the 2025 Tokyo Ham Fair, and Icom used the event to announce some new radios and equipment. The biggest announcement was of the IC 7300 Mark II, the next version of one of the most successful radios ever produced in amateur radio. The new version improves RMDR and phase noise performance to help reduce adjacent signals, better power efficiency. They report a 23% reduction in receive standby current consumption, an HDMI port for external display usage, a built-in CW decoder, a separate connector for receive antennas, USB Type-C connectivity with virtual COM ports that allow for simultaneous FT8 usage and logging, and a LAN connection to remote into the unit using the RSBA1 software without the use of a server computer. Icom also announced the next edition of their ID 5200 2-meter and 70-centimeter mobile radio, which supports dual reception of FM, FM and DV, and DV and DV signals, as well as having a color touchscreen, broad receive, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity, and an internal gateway for networking, and a DV repeater monitor. Also announced was the AH6 automatic antenna tuner with support for 50 ohm and long wire antennas, coverage from 160 to 6 meters, and a power rating of 100 watts. Information about the products can be found at the links in the show notes. If you've been on the air in the last few days, you may have noticed that we appear to have moved out of the summer doldrums and into better conditions on the HF bands. Forecasters are predicting the conditions will be quite good through the end of the month due to elevated sunspot activity, quiet geomagnetic conditions, low solar winds, few coronal mass ejections, and very low coronal hole activity. This means it's a great time to get on the air and enjoy the conditions. In the past week, I was able to work Kiribati, Hawaii, Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Argentina, and all over Europe. Get on the air and enjoy these great conditions. Good luck and good DX to all. And now let's talk about some MVARC nets on the air. We always have our 2-meter FM net on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. on the repeater. That is immediately followed by our 2-meter digital net on Yaesu System Fusion C4 FM. On the weekends, we've got the MVARC Slow Speed CW Roundtable, both Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 a.m. on 3.565 megahertz on CW, usually going 12 to 15 words a minute, and we'll slow down to wherever you're comfortable. And then that is followed at 8:30 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday by the Cherry Tree Net on 3.920 megahertz lower sideband, where there's always a great conversation, and you're always welcome to join us. And now let's take a look at what is happening with DX. There will be a good amount of DX on the bands this week, including Lord Howe Island, Benin, South Sudan, Tarawa Kiribati, Kuwait, Rhodes Island, Palau, Banaba Island, Tanzania, Rwanda, Colombia, Annobon Island, Equatorial Guinea, Palestine, Solomon Islands, and Antarctica. A calendar of DX expeditions can be found at dxnews.com/calendar. And now it is time for a solar activity update. As we go to press, the solar flux index was 232, and the estimated sunspot number was 227, with 13 numbered sunspot regions visible from Earth. Over the last week, the SFI has dramatically increased, and solar activity has been at low levels recently. The geomagnetic field was at quiet levels to unsettled levels, and the KP index reached 2 yesterday. The solar wind peaked at 421 kilometers per second. Solar activity is predicted to be at quiet to unsettled levels today and at quiet levels over the weekend. And the chance of solar radiation storms at the S1 or greater level is low at 15% today and 10% over the weekend. R1 to R2 radio blackouts are likely in the near term, with a predicted possibility of 60% today and 65% over the weekend. R3 or greater blackouts are unlikely, with a 10% chance predicted today and 15% over the weekend. There's a chance of 6-meter propagation, so keep an eye on the band and the spotting clusters to be ready for the next time the Magic Band does its thing. HF conditions have been really favorable overall, and it remains a fantastic time for amateurs to get on the air and work the world. Good sources of real-time solar information include spaceweatherlive.com and solarham.com. A good overview of conditions can be found at dx.qsl.net/propagation. You can see delay or absorption data and associated radio blackouts at the NOAA DRAP page. And to see maximum usable frequency, or MUF, and critical frequency, or FOF2 information from Radioson data, visit prop.kc2g.com. And now let's take a look at some upcoming contests. On the contest calendar this weekend, we will see the SCRY Ridiops WWRTTY contest, the Feldhell Sprint, the Alara contest, the U.S. Islands QSO Party, the Worldwide Digi DX contest, the Colorado QSO Party, and the Kansas QSO Party. And as always, the K1 USN SSTs, the MSTs, and the CWTs will also be on the air. The full contest calendar with events and exchanges can be found at contestcalendar.com. And finally, let's wrap things up with some interesting online radio content. Al Marie KJ5LXP gives an introduction to Meshtastic. Josh KI6NAZ takes a look at the TX500MP Manpack HF radio. Kevin KB9RLW shows us how to use an oscilloscope to sniff RF noise. Chris K2CJB shows a trailer hitch mount for the Spider Beam 10-meter mask. Lewis M3HHY takes a look at the Choyong LC90 long wave, medium wave, short wave, FM, and internet radio. I have this thing. It's pretty great. It's a good radio. Matt M0DQW takes a look at the Liligo T-Embed SI4732 and CC1101 radios. Mark KD7DTS and RIN6ARA talk to Umesh KK6TXI about batteries, camping, and soda on Sofas on the Air. Walt K4OGO takes a look at the T41 EPSDR and talks to its creators. Kevin 2E0 Whiskey My Golf builds a POTA performer from off-the-shelf parts. Kevin W1DED talks to the contest crew about the single operator 2R radio secrets and also their plans for CQ Worldwide. George VK2AOE has a 2-part series about tubes being compared for his QRP rig. There is some magic smoke that gets released. TJ K9KJ takes us around the Tokyo Ham Fair. Dr. Tamitha Skove, WX6SWW, talks about recent solar activity. Kevin 2E0 Whiskey Mike Golf does QRP operation from a tiny island via kayak. Sean W9FFF has a, shall we say, less than stellar experience with the Heltec Mesh Pocket device. Matt M0DQW takes a look at the Baofeng UV5R Mini. DKO6BTM does SOTA on VHF and SHF with SOTA Cat Ormu. Walt K4OGO does Beach Portable with the Guatec PMR 171. Alan W2AEW takes a look at the Sierra Victor 4401A Vector Network Analyzer. Hayden VK7HH takes a look at the newly announced Icom IC7300 Mark II. And finally, Mike KMRD takes a look at the Buddy Pole Power Pro. Well, that is it for this week. I've been Ed, November 2 Echo Charlie. Thanks, as always, for joining us. We hope you have a great week ahead. Best 73, and we look forward to seeing you next week.